And is there a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of July 23rd?
Second.
Are there any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The items for consideration, the first one is P1, Resolution 67R12, designating that portion of Mulford Street west of Dodge Avenue and James Park with the honorary street name sign Lionel and Irma Carter Drive. Staff recommends adoption of Resolution 67R12, designating a portion of Mulford Street west of Dodge Avenue and James Park, Lionel and Irma Carter Drive.
No.
Madam Chairman.
Madam
Yes.
Chairman.
Oh, go ahead.
Madam
Yes,
Chairman.
Alderman Rainey.
I would appreciate the withdrawal of the approval because this is incorrect. We've had an amendment to this. So let's start over.
Okay. Our amendment. Okay, is renaming that portion of Mulford Street west of Dodge Avenue and James Park, Lionel and Irma Carter Drive, which is much better than an honorary street name.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Is there anyone here tonight who wants to speak to this? Okay, Alderman Rainey.
Madam Chair, this is a couple, if you, the information in our packet is all the same, it's just that it's not honorary, it's a permanent street name. This is the piece of Mulford that runs from Dodge west to James Hill, to Mount Trashmore. And it's significant because it runs along the Levy Center property. And this couple was an amazing couple who contributed so much to the Levy Center and, in fact, left a significant sum of money, a bequest to the Levy Center. And in honor of them, unfortunately, they've passed away now, we would like to honor them by naming the street after them. This doesn't present any of the problems that naming like a residential street after somebody changing the name, because there are no addresses on this street. It's just a street that everybody who goes to the Levy Center has to go on. So that's what makes it so important.
Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Okay.
Can I just say one other thing?
Of course.
There's going to be a huge celebration at the Levy Center this week on Saturday in honor of its 10th anniversary. I mean, I know we all remember when it was being built, and now it's 10 years.
And when is the huge celebration?
1 o'clock,
Uh-huh,
Saturday,
okay.
at the Levy Center.
And everyone's invited?
Everyone's invited.
Wonderful.
Food, drink, entertainment, speeches.
Wonderful. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's done. Thank you all very much. The second item on our agenda is the approval of substantial amendment to the 2012 Action Plan, the Home Program. The Housing Commission and staff recommend approval of this substantial amendment to the City and HUD-approved 2012 Action Plan that establishes a once-per-year deadline for home applications. This is rather than a rolling deadline.
Move approval.
Any discussion?
Does this need any explanation? No.
Would you like to explain?
It was at a time where you could just apply whenever, and
Right.
now we're going to have a
Yeah,
regular
right.
application.
Yes.
It's exactly what Alderman Rainey is saying. Due to the rolling nature of it, it was hard for us to manage, and it was a first come, first serve, et cetera. So by making the October 31st deadline like this, it has applicants come in, and then the committee can judge the best of the best, if you will.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? P3, Resolution 63R12, plat of subdivision for 1600 Foster Street. Staff and the Site Plan and Appearance Review Committee, SPARC, recommend adoption of 63R12, which would approve the creation of 7 lots from 1 at 1600 Foster, which will implement the first phase of Emerson Square, the second component of the city's $18.15 million Neighborhood Stabilization Program, NSP2 grant, awarded by HUD.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, and we have one citizen signed up to speak. Betty Esther. Betty, are you here? There. And for citizen comment, we're limiting it to 3 minutes, please.
Hi, my name is Betty Esther. I stay at 2031 Church Street. I rise to speak to this item P3, not as an objection, but out of a concern. I got a call from one of the neighbors that was there, and she had said, upset, crying, and that she had called the city. She hadn't got any phone calls back. Her husband was coming home, and he was sick, and her house was shaking and everything from the work that is being done over there. I advised her to call again, to write again, and to ask them to cease and desist until you put in some kind of measure that will safeguard the people, those 100-year-old homes that's sitting on Dewey. They are beginning to, one of the lady called, she called me, and then somebody else called me because the lady told, well, Mrs. So-and-so talked to you, and I'm like, I'm not the one you should be calling. But they did call. Whether they'll come here or not, I don't know. Unfortunately, they have experienced that coming here, talking about that site and everything, not to have been heard. They feel that their voices and things will not be heard. We have people to tell us that our voices won't be heard. But I'm here asking, and hopefully they did write the city manager and all the other people I told them to write, that look into that and cease and desist so those people home will not be damaged. Because I don't think the people that will benefit from these new homes want the old ones destroyed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Esther. Alderman Holmes, then Alderman Rainey.
Well, first, I just want to say I haven't heard from anyone on Dewey. I did get from Mr. Marino today just an update that there had been a call from a resident about possible shaking from the demolition that had been done, and that all has been completed. But the city is going to check it, and just for information, anyone in the Fifth Ward, I'm pretty accessible. My number is 847-373-2965. If they will give me a call, I would be more than happy to look into any of those situations. So, but I haven't heard from anyone until today when it was brought to my attention by Mr. Marino, who did receive a call from one resident.
Alderman Rainey?
Well, what I was curious about is when was the work being done, and it's not being done now, right?
No, it's all completed.
But when did it get completed?
Ms. Marino, I don't know the date.
Because it sounds like these calls are coming today? No. Because could you tell us in detail what exactly is going on right now and what did go on that could have caused this?
Dennis Moreno, Manager of Planning and Zoning. Today, I did receive a complaint that initially, I guess, went to legal last Friday, but the complaint was from a resident in the block to the west, I believe, of the former Bishop Freeman site. The demolition is complete at this point. There's still, obviously, additional site work ongoing. Occasionally, we do have this kind of complaint when demolition or development is underway at different sites around town. We have a process for city staff and the development team to be able to examine the complaint and review it. And so given that we've really started this process rolling today, that's what will be occurring.
But when did the demolition stop? That's what I want to know.
Todd Lieberman from Brinshore can give us the exact details of start and stop on the demolition.
Good evening, Alderman. To your question, the demolition of the building is complete. Site demolition and site work is underway right now. So the work that the neighbor probably is referencing is concrete being grinded on the site. So
Right now.
yeah, and we will explore this issue which came to our attention today. I reached out to the neighbor and told her that I could come by tomorrow with our construction folks to speak with her and examine the property.
Okay.
Let us know. I think
course.
we should get some feedback on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, is there anyone else who wants to speak with this? Okay, otherwise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okey-doke. We're moving on to P4, Ordinance 94-012, amending the special use for a convenience store at 555 Howard Street in the B3 district. Staff recommends approval of proposed ordinance amending an existing special use for the convenience store located at 555 Howard to allow it to open at 6 instead of 7 a.m. and to remain open until 8 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. This is for introduction. Alderman Rainey.
Yes, I'd like to move for introduction. Could I have a second? Second. But at the same time, I'd like to speak to this. Thank you. This 555 Howard was my worst nightmare on Howard Street. It was approved for a special use years ago. It was purchased by the current owner who claimed not to know about the special use limitation on hours. Hundreds of police calls in a period of a year, and it became apparent. Now, I don't ride around in the middle of the night, so I didn't know, but they were staying open all night. And we shut them down and said you had to stay open. You could stay open only the hours that you were approved by ZBA. Well, they have become among the most active members of the Howard Street Business Association. They have had an enormous behavior change. I attribute it a lot to not being open 24 hours, but I think based on how well they've performed in the last year, that I agreed to extend these hours an hour before and an hour after they're currently open. And we're going to look at them in 6 months, and if they're able to maintain the good relationship that they have with the neighborhood, then we might consider even another hour or so. But anyway, I would like the committee to consider approving suspension of the rules so that we could pass the whole thing at the council meeting tonight.
Okay.
If you don't want to, I would understand, but I thought I would just make the request.
Okay. Is there anyone who opposes suspending the rules?
I've said it already.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, let's vote on suspension of the rules first. No, we'll vote on the whole thing
No,
first?
just vote on
introduction first. Okay, so we'll suspend the rules at council. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okey-doke. So the recommendation going to council is to suspend the rules tonight to vote on this. All right.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving along to P5. It's Ordinance 96-012, granting a special use permit for a planned development located at 1211 Chicago Avenue, which is Trader Joe's. The Plan Commission and city staff recommend the adoption of Ordinance 96-012, granting planned development approval for the proposed new Trader Joe's at 1211 Chicago Avenue, and this is for introduction. And I believe we have a staff presentation. Dennis is going to be speaking to it. Dennis Marino.
Thank you, Alderman Fisk. On the screen here, you can see the site plan for the proposed Trader Joe's. It's a retail building of approximately 13,000 square feet to be constructed on site, one story. It's the former site of the video store and long ago Saxon Paint. The 81 parking spaces you see to the north of the proposed building more than meet the parking requirements. The entire project was unanimously recommended for approval by the Plan Commission as a planned development. There's been a very dynamic and a very positive process between the neighbors, Alderman Nguyen, and also the development team in working out all the details of site planning that's reflected in the ordinance. But of course, Alderman Nguyen will address that later, I'm sure. But it's my pleasure also to introduce Kevin Glazley and also Scott Gendell from the development team who'll give a brief summary of the project.
How do you do? I'm Scott Gendell. I'm the president of Terrico and the managing member of the LLC which owns his property. Pat Mulhern is also here, and I'd like Pat to be recognized. He's the head of the neighborhood group, and we've worked extensively with Pat throughout the process to address some of the concerns of the neighborhood group in a way that has really been a great partnership between the city, the aldermen, the neighborhood group, and us as the private developer, along with Trader Joe's as well. Part of that concern related to closing off the alley to any truck or even trash collection. We were able to do that. And in addition to that, with respect to the deliveries, we have agreed, and the neighbors are I believe, grateful for it, to a enclosed delivery facility which will be used for deliveries to Trader Joe's, and that facility is at the far eastern end of the property in the triangulated little appendage there to the building. In addition to that, there's an 8-foot sound-attenuated stone wall that is on the eastern border of the property. We have a trellis along Chicago Avenue, which will be a landscape trellis as well. And in addition to that, the building, in case any of you have seen it, I think is relatively attractive, rather attractive in my opinion. But again, it's my baby. And again, we've worked through these issues. We probably have had close to a half a dozen meetings with Pat and the neighborhood group and the aldermen, and I think that there's a unanimous consensus between the neighborhood group and us right now on those issues.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen, did you want to address this?
Well, I'd like first to move approval. Second. Okay. I do want to add my comments. This has been very much a collaborative process. I think that, and the result has been very positive. I want to thank Terrico for being willing to work with the community members. The community members raised all good points. This is an example of which we have a lot of in Evanston, where we have a commercial strip immediately adjacent to residential. And those types of uses adjacent to each other always raise some kinds of conflict, especially when there's a change. And this is a significant change. It's very positive for the community, but the community members raised good points. And what we now have is with new technology, ways of addressing a lot of the conflict points in terms of sound attenuation, light pollution, the ability to have deliveries at a very specific time, which is possible because of cell phone technology and things like that. So I think the end result is going to be very positive. I also want to say the landscaping will be very nice and mature, or not mature, but very nice size, not twigs put in as we have sometimes in other places. So I think this is really positive, and I think it's a new standard for these types of places where we have fairly intense commercial use immediately adjacent to residential. And this is, so Trader Joe's has set a new standard, and I think that's something that the council should look at. Not tonight at all. I just think that I want to thank them. I want to thank them, Terrico, for being very cooperative and creative in terms of how they address these issues. It was a very positive process.
And thank you, Alderman Nguyen.
And thank the community members for raising all of the issues that were really important to the community, because it's going to benefit everyone in Evanston.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this? Anyone from the public who wanted to speak? Okay, this is for introduction, so we'll, all those in favor of introducing this?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on to items for discussion. PD1 is the bed and breakfast B&B uses. You have materials in your packet that basically discuss the issues surrounding the B&B ordinance that was defeated at council. At Alderman Rainey's suggestion, we're coming back for a discussion, and I appreciate that very much. We have two people who are signed up to speak. Frank Cicero and David Reynolds.
Thank you, Alderman. I'm pleased to be able to talk to you again about this issue. When the ordinance came up in August, I left a paper in my comments with you. I want to talk only about the ownership issue. I think that the solution, as I said in August, the solution that said that that it has to be the primary residence of the owner-operator, and that the owner-operator has to have 50% ownership at least, and maybe adding for a belt and suspenders approach that they can only do one, is the way to go. I think that LLCs should be prohibited from owning these, and the reason is very simple. LLCs exist for two primary purposes. One is to give the operator, the member owner, like the gentleman that appeared here, maximum flexibility in how they allocate authority, how they allocate ownership, and so forth. The member manager does not have to own a substantial percentage, and so forth. They can operate many, many LLCs. The second and equally significant point is that the second purpose is to insulate from personal responsibility the manager-owner and the people that are really behind the operation of the LLC. That could include, in the case of a B&B, not only casualty liability that we think about, but also tax liability, liability for complying with regulations and penalties, and so forth. I know there's a concern about the operator being protected in the case of a homeowner operator, for example, and the situation for the future is no different than it is right now. For me and my home, for you and yours, you insure. And the LLC method to attempt to give the owner protection in that case is way, way, way overkill and will cause a lot of other problems. So I think that and I would request that revisiting this issue, whether or not you do other regulation, because if this is left to be dealt with in the special use process, the same issue will come up if someone shows up and wants to have a B&B operated by an LLC. The claim that the LLC is the owner-operator, I don't know how an LLC makes breakfast in the kitchen, but the claim that the LLC is the owner-operator will be one that will have to be litigated, and that's a messy way to do it. It ought to be cleared up right here. Thank you. I'd be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Cicero?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. David Reynolds.
Thank you. My name is David Reynolds. I live at 204 Davis. My comments are really very short this evening. As you consider this, I hope that you will consider that B&Bs will be inserted, commercial uses inserted in R1 and R2 single-family residential areas. It's a business insertion in an area where most homeowners have their most valuable asset, and where most homeowners spend the most of their time. I hope you'll be very careful in the density of B&Bs you allow and the types of operations they can conduct and in their parking requirements, so as not to diminish the value to the single-family homeowner that lives next door or down the street. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open this up for discussion from the committee. Alderman Rainey.
So I thought it was an interesting variety of communities that I looked at.
Alderman Rainey,
I'm
could
sorry,
you?
I did.
Your mic may not be on.
Is it on now?
Yes, thank you.
Interesting variety of communities, Urbana, Champaign, Oak Park, Madison, Wisconsin, and Charlottesville, Virginia. Seems that the biggest concern that these communities had was the parking issue. You know, that parking here, parking there, parking based on who was running it. But I see nothing unless our staff forgot to include a column about distance or number of B&Bs allowed. But I think they probably put everything on the chart that they found. So, I mean, I don't see that this differs much from what we have right now. So, and I don't remember saying I wanted to have a discussion at this meeting, but maybe I
You did.
Well, I know I said that, at some point in time, we should, take another look at it, but anyway, so, interesting information.
Alderman Nguyen.
I want to thank staff for the information that's been presented. I do think the two critical issues to me are the ownership issue, and I want to thank
Frank Cicero.
Frank Cicero for his very lucid description. Litigators are good at that. And for pointing out to us the potential hazards of the mess that we would run into if we do this individually as a special use. I mean, we'll have a battle here in front of the ZBA for every one of these. And I think that's not fair to the community. It's not fair to the potential bed and breakfast owner. Clarity is the best thing that we can do for our ordinance. I think that all of us agree that a mom and pop bed and breakfast, I would like to say that I think most of us recognize that that's what most people have a view of. I've stayed in bed and breakfast in a number of these places that are listed. They were owned by single-family homeowners. And I think the other critical issue is the one that David Reynolds raised, which is that we not have too much density. Most of us who bought our homes bought in what we understood to be the residential district that is designated, and not that there would be businesses on our street unless we bought someplace other than residential. So to me, having a distance requirement is critical, and having the ownership issue, where this is the primary residence of the operator, is the other critical issue. They're essential, I think, to having a bed and breakfast ordinance that works without having a battle royal happen every single time we have an application.
Alderman Rainey.
I'd like to ask staff how many inquiries we've had about establishing a bed and breakfast, and how many, applications to ZBA have we had? Let's say in the last year.
One.
This reminds me of the chicken coop debate, and then the beehive debate. We get all excited about how horrible things can be and how they can go wrong. And we spend months and months and months legislating, and then, I think we have 2 chicken coops today, or no chicken coops today, or 1 chicken coop. We have 1 beehive.
We have 11 chicken coops.
We have 2?
11.
11?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't even know we had any, so I guess they're not that bad. How many beehives do we have? I think 2.
2.
So, we have had, I hope Alderman Nguyen and Alderman Fisk, you just heard, we've had 1 application. I know you're very impressed with your neighborhoods, and I know you think there's going to be 1 million in your neighborhoods. But there are other, believe it or not, there are other nice R1 and R2 neighborhoods in this community. I happen to live in one. And they're in the 5th Ward, 2nd Ward, they're in every ward. So whenever we have these discussions, it's as though the only place a bed and breakfast is going to want to be is in your neighborhood, and that's just not true. So here we've been having the discussion and raising the issue of bed and breakfasts for 1.5 years, 2 years, and we have 1 application. I think we should move on.
Well, Alderman Rainey, I guess I'll take a moment to speak and tell you that...
My light on.
Oh, is it, okay, Alderman Holmes, please go ahead.
No, all I wanted to say really is in terms of, I certainly support having a distance. I just think that's really important in terms of not having any neighborhood, regardless of where it may be located, to be overrun with any type of whether it's a bread and breakfast, whether it's group homes, whatever it is, that there just needs to be some distance. So I definitely support that, and I do think it's time for us to move on, because we have been discussing this forever. So I would love to see us be able to take this off of the table and
Okay.
move ahead.
Okay,
We defeated it at the last meeting.
right.
Right.
We have a current ordinance, and that's what's
And,
up.
well, absolutely.
I will take a minute to speak and say, Alderman Rainey, I'm impressed with your neighborhood as well. And I told you that a couple of months ago, before this even came up. The problem that I see is throughout the discussion on this is that we've had bed and breakfasts as part of our zoning ordinance for the past almost 20 years now, and we have had no applications for them. And the reason why, to the best of my knowledge, is that they're not profitable for mom and pop to rent out a few rooms in their house. That's why we haven't had any legal beds and breakfasts in Evanston. What we have now, though, are people who are coming in to run commercial bed and breakfasts, who are devoting the entire structure to as an investment property in a single-family neighborhood, and I don't think that was ever intended to be a use in a single-family neighborhood. I don't see that, well, I should say, perhaps the special use process and the ZBA process can deal with some of these issues, but I think the two remaining large issues are ownership, and I think that it would be, we wouldn't be doing our job if once this has been brought to our attention, we didn't refer it on to the law department to look at ownership of Bs and Bs. Clearly, we're going to have more investors coming to Evanston, buying houses and looking at the potential for running basically guest hotels in single-family neighborhoods, and I'm not sure that's what anyone intends or desires in their neighborhood. So I would recommend that we go ahead and ask staff to look at better definition of ownership of Bs and Bs, specifically in the LLC, and that we also consider a distance requirement. Okay. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. I'm directing staff to create an ordinance that would establish a clear ownership, a clear definition of ownership of for a bed and breakfast and an LLC, and distance requirement.
I think we need to talk about this.
Alderman Rainey, can't hear you.
This is something that we just defeated at our last meeting. Was it our last meeting? Yeah. Let's send this, you can ask our staff to give you an opinion on anything, but I don't think you have, I don't think this is the time to ask to bring the same ordinance back in a different form. We just defeated it.
Well, I
guarantee you it's going to go down again, probably. I mean,
Well, Alderman Rainey, when the arguments were made at council, you specifically encouraged everyone on council to vote it down so that we could come back and discuss it further.
But not the next week. We need to see how this works.
It's been 6 weeks.
We have one we have one applicant, the 176th richest person in the world. That's his level of wealth. Has purchased the building to do a bed and breakfast, and you fear that this man is going to destroy neighborhoods by buying up other buildings, and I just don't know where that's coming from.
I think the concern about ownership is a serious concern that we need to look at as a city. And frankly, this one particular owner now owns 4 properties on a single block.
Well, then we're not worried about a mom and pop not being able to make ends meet here. I mean, it's almost, I don't know, it's very bizarre, the obsession with this, when this city has so many huge problems, that the bed and breakfast issue has become an obsession with certain members of our community and aldermen, and it just makes no sense to me. And nobody has proven that it's a big issue. Nobody.
Well, I think it's a concern, and I think that I'm going to make the reference to the law department, please, to work on this.
They should just
Is everyone-
Xerox the last thing they put out.
Is everyone in agreement, other than Alderman Rainey?
I'm not in agreement.
Okay. Alderman Holmes, are you in agreement
To,
to refer this to the law department?
if you want to do that, Alderman Fisk, is fine with me, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, are there any communications? No communications. All righty. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you very much. City Council will begin in 5 minutes, roughly 8 o'clock.